Translation. Many headless trunks were generated on that battlefield. With weapons in their arms, those ghostly trunks, which could see with the eyes in the fallen heads, attacked the enemy soldiers. Purport. It appears that the heroes who died on the battlefield immediately became ghosts, and although their heads had been severed from their bodies, new trunks were generated, and these new trunks, seeing with the eyes in the severed heads, began to attack the enemy. In other words, many ghosts were generated to join in the fight, and thus new trunks appeared on the battlefield. Om Ganan Tamanandasya Ganan Salakaya Chakshaman Tamina Tasman Shigurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobisam Sapitamina Bhutavai Swayam Upakadamayam Tadanti Swapadantikam. So it's very difficult to see you fellows over there. Maybe you could come this way a little bit, and you're sitting in front of that lady behind you, so you could move over a little bit. Because communication takes place through the eyes. Unless we can see each other, we can't really communicate so effectively. Thank you. So I happen to have the occasion to come to London for the annual meeting of the Association of Heterodox Economists. I presented a paper there. Human Motivation and Behaviors Explained by Sankhya Philosophy. It's 11 pages, which is basically an 11-page summary of my book. And while I'm at it, I can plug the book. I also have about 10 copies left of my book. And if any of you would like to get a copy at a discount price, just donation, whatever you can give, we're very happy to receive that. So anyway, it's nice to have the occasion to come back to London and to have your association again. Thank you very much. In the Bhagavatam here, we have the perennial story of the clash between the Devas and the demons, the Daityas and Adaityas. This clash is still going on, and although it would appear as though there's not so much of a struggle anymore, isn't it? We might think that these would be stories of the Bhagavatam of a long time ago, which some or other, when all the demons were killed on the Battle of Kurukshetra, that business was finished, and now we have just a copacetic situation in which everybody can live happily ever after. Or is it? Actually, the situation is not much different. Later, we'll read in a few more verses how when Bali, when he is frustrated by in his attempt to attack Indra, he resorts to various illusions on the battlefield. And the demons, being not so powerful anymore, they're still resorting to illusions. Can you slide over a little bit so I can see him? Thank you. A little bit back there. Very good. Thank you. Okay. They're still using illusion. What's the illusion that the demons use today? First of all, we have to understand what their purpose is. The demons in this world, they want to take the place of Krishna. They want to be the lords of the world. And that's what's going on here. Although in this case, in these stories in the Bhagavatam, the demons are fighting with the Devas for supremacy so that they may occupy the heavenly planets. And from time to time that happens, depending upon the modes of material nature. Sometimes the demons are favored and sometimes the Devas are favored. So their purpose, they want to enjoy this world. They think this world is theirs. It's there for their enjoyment alone. And this is still the case, and they still think that way. But like we said, because they're not as powerful as they once were due to the effects of Kali Yuga. So therefore, they also resort to various illusions to enjoy this world. So, what's that illusion that they're using? Who can say? Huh? What else? That's all right. That's good to an extent. But here's the illusion that they're using now, right? This is Maya Lakshmi, right? Like Maya Sita. So this is Maya Lakshmi. It actually has no value. It's just a piece of paper. And they use this, and with this paper, they control the world. Very interesting how they've been able to arrange that. And but with this illusion, they're able actually to suck the energy from all the people in the world. We read in the Bhagavatam how the kings, the demoniac kings, that they prohibited the yajna. They would not allow the Brahmins to perform yajna. And they wanted what? They wanted everyone to worship them. King Venu, he told the Brahmanas, I'm the king, you should worship me, not Krishna. So this is still the case. They want they want everybody to worship them. And how is that worship going on? Where is everybody? Why are not all the members of this temple here for the morning program and in the Bhagavatam class? Where are they? They're gone. Yeah, they've gone to work. They've gone to worship the demons. Right? Worship means you give your time and your energy, huh? You're giving your time and your energy. Like we come for Arti, we give our time and our energy to the deities, to the Lord. And in that process, this is worship. So the demons, they've arranged the way that everyone will worship them indirectly, by having to require this money. And so everyone goes to work in the morning. The same situation, for example, in Alachua, Florida, our biggest community in America, some 1,500 devotees, but the attendance at their Mangal Arti is not much different than the attendance here at your Mangal Arti. About 40 devotees, 30 to 40 devotees. And the rest of them are, they're living in another culture. That culture demands their time and energy, and therefore they get up. They don't have time to come to the temple. They maybe will have some worship at home, or maybe some time to chant japa, depending on their circumstances. And then most of their time is given to getting money. So this is what's going on today. These demons, they're still trying to take the energy of everyone, and they're doing it with illusion. Now, they're not, being of a demonic nature, we can see that they're not even satisfied with that. But in fact, that they're trying to take more and more, as much as they can. Prabhupada writes, he explains that the demoniac, that they're even happier when they see others suffer. Isn't it? And it's the case. It's true. Because if you see what's going on in the world and understand what their purpose is and how their motives, what their motives are, you can see that this is going on. Because my service involves economics, I read about economic activities, and there it's very clear to see how they manipulate people with debt, with paper money that they create from where? Nothing. Thin air. We have the situation where the central banks of the world, they create money and they loan it to the government. Right? Now the government could just create their own money, right, and put it into circulation. But we don't have that situation. We have the situation where the central banks, which are privately owned, they create the money out of thin air, they loan it to the government at interest, and then the people of the state, they have to pay back that interest. So we have in America the situation where it used to be $350 billion a year was paid just on debt service for the debt of borrowing that money. And so in this way, with this illusion, they're controlling everything. They've got everybody taking their energy. So over the past several decades, we saw that the banking powers, the World Bank and IMF and other banks, they basically managed to find a way to enslave again the populations of what we might call the third world countries, or sometimes called like that. what they would do is they would go to various countries and they would make them loans. They would promise them that we'll use this money to develop infrastructure, we'll build airports for you and ports and so on, and we'll develop industry, and this way you'll have economic development and you'll have jobs for all of your people, and then everybody will be better, and you'll be able to pay back the loans. So sounds good, but in practice what happens is they actually don't give them the money. What they do is they hire American engineering firms to come there and build all those projects. They hire the local people at bare minimum wage, and the prosperity that they were promised actually never materializes. So the consequence of that is that they can't pay back their debt. And in the Bible, King Solomon, he says that the borrower shall become the slave to the lender. And that's what happens. So then the International Monetary Fund says, well, we need to have what's called a structural adjustment program where we'll adjust your economy so that you can have more money to pay back the loans. And what are those adjustments? They take money away from the schools. They take money away from the hospitals. They take money away from all of the social programs so that the people basically wind up with impoverished. In fact, in some countries, this winds up leading to big protests. In one of the South American countries, for example, the price of bread went up 36 times overnight. The price of fuel doubled overnight, and so on like this. So, of course, this puts people in extreme hardship, in which they're not able to live a decent life hardly at all. So that was going on in the decades of the 80s and 90s, a little bit in the 70s. And especially it was bumped up with this idea of globalization during the 90s. And not satisfied with simply exploiting the underdeveloped countries, now the banking powers, they've taken to exploiting what we call the first world countries, right? Europe and America. This 2008 crash that we had actually was completely created. On my website, you can read an article I wrote called Economic Chernobyl. By the way, Chernobyl, I was living in Ukraine in a little town called Chernigov, which is about 30 kilometers away from Chernobyl. And there I met some of the relatives of people who had worked at that Chernobyl plant. And they told me actually what happened was that all the nuclear plants, they have fail-safe designs so that if the reactor gets out of control, it'll automatically shut down. So what happened there is that the engineers, they jammed those fail-safe devices so they couldn't function because they wanted to push the reactor beyond its design limits. So the inevitable happened, and they had a catastrophic meltdown. So it wasn't really an accident, it was an incident. And the economic crash of 2008 was not an accident, it was actually an incident. It was deliberately created by the banking powers to put into the works these austerity practices in Europe and America, the same things that they were doing in the Southern Hemisphere previously. So now we see, of course, some countries are better off than others still, but we see Spain, Greece, Italy, to some extent, Ireland, Iceland, with big economic problems. And so consequently, why are they doing this? Because they're not satisfied to see people having a decent life. That's the real nature of this world. The nature of this world is that these demons are real. This is not some fairy tale from the Bhagavatam, from some story long, long time ago. It's going on today. And their purpose is to exploit everybody more and more and more. And if you actually knew what the extent of their plans were, it would be hair-raising. It is hair-raising. It's diabolical. You can get to understand the real nature of demoniac when you begin to understand what they're doing with these things. I document some of those issues in one chapter of my book called The Economics of Ignorance, or basically modern economics under the influence of Tamagun. And it becomes very, very dark. So then what to do? People all over the world, what are they doing? They're marching in the street because they can't survive, right? Greece, Spain, and so on, they're having protest after protest. Other countries they're making revolutions and so on. Because they don't know what to do. Right? What they're doing is they're taking shelter of the fallible soldiers of this world, the Bhagavatam tells us, right? Their government, money, and so on. But we're going to see that these fallible soldiers are actually being taken away from people to where they're not going to have any shelter at all. And then where will they go for shelter? So this is preaching opportunity for us to help everyone explain what to do. What to do. Because marching in the street's not going to make any difference, right? What's the problem? What's the real problem? There's some bad karma to be paid, right? 100,000 animals are being slaughtered every minute of every day around the world, not counting the fish. There's a big karmic bill. What to speak of abortions, prostitution, all the sinful activities that are going on. So there's a karmic bill. And that bill has to be paid, and it's going to be paid one way or the other. The one way is by suffering. And what's the other way? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting this mantra, we change the karma. We can eradicate the karma by agreeing to follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord. So the demigods, in an earlier chapter in this Bhagavatam, in this canto, chapter 5, again, the demigods were in the fight with the demons. The demigods were in a awkward position. And what did they do? They thought, well, now is time to seek the help of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they went to Lord Brahma and asked him what to do. And they said, let's go see Vishnu. So they said, now is the time to invoke the mode of goodness. When the mode of ignorance is prominent, the strength of the most wicked increases. And when the mode of goodness is prominent, the strength of the devas increases. So the situation we have in the world now is that mode of ignorance is prominent. Tamagun is running rampant. It's in every household. It's on every street corner in the world. And so in this environment, the demons are gaining strength more and more. And we see what they're doing with that, right? They're using it to extract the wealth and the energy of this world, sometimes subtly, as what goes on here, and sometimes more violently, as we see in other places in the world. So this is what I'm presenting in my paper. And in my book, I'm explaining economics according to the different gunas. And I present the solution to the economic problem. The subtitle of my book is Understanding and Solving the Economic Problem. And the real economic problem is not all this stuff that the economists always talk about. The real economic problem comes as a karmic reaction to the sinful activities of the people of this world. Due to their activities in Tamagun, they get economics of Tamagun, which means that they're going to be exploited. Or they can exploit, or they will be exploited, basically the cheaters and the cheated. So if we want to have a decent world, if we actually want to have a world that works for everyone, if we want to have an economics that works for everyone, we have to change the way that we live. We can't behave in one way in this part of life and expect a different result in this part of life. We're integrated beings. Whatever we do here is going to come back there. So all of our activities, they create a particular result. And so this is what we need to teach the people. They need to understand how this world is working so that they can act in their own best interest. Not understanding this, being bewildered by Tamagun. Right? In Tamagun, one thinks What is right is wrong, and what is wrong is right. So being bewildered by tamagon, they simply dig the hole deeper and deeper and wind up in greater and greater problem. There's no happy ending to the story unless people will change the way that they're living. So this is our preaching. This is what we have to inform people. Help them understand, how is this world working? And help them also understand that the solution to this problem and all of the problems is to approach the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, and the most direct way and easy way of doing that is to take up the chanting of His holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's no solution otherwise. Without that, things will just get worse and worse and worse. In 1972, in Los Angeles, imagine at that time, the oldest devotee in the movement at that time was 7 years. And so Prabhupada said to the devotees in Los Angeles, he said, only you can save this world. Who, me? Who am I? Yeah, you. And the same thing still holds. Only you, only we, devotees, can actually save this world, because we understand from the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam how this world is working, what the real cause is, and what the actual solution is. So we should take up this preaching, help people to understand what the actual situation is, so that we can turn everything around. It's happening in various places in interesting ways. After the conference, we went over to Soho Street and had prasadam, and then we just had a walkabout. And there we saw the Christians having their Rath Yatra. I guess we might call Rath Yatra. There's a long parade, and they were all singing some songs about Jesus. And it went on for quite some time. Maybe a quarter of a mile, something like that. So different groups, they were wearing different color T-shirts, and each city they would have their group, and there was yellow, red, blue, green, purple, like this, right? So it was very interesting to see. I was quite happy to see, and I couldn't help but imagine, of course, that they took this idea from our Rath Yatra, and they said, well, all those Hare Krishnas, they're out there chanting, Krishna, so let's go chant about Jesus. Right? So, anyway, that's a step in the right direction. So we need to see more and more of that. We need to encourage people to understand what the reality of the situation is, and then to act, to do something different. It's not that the politicians or the bankers are going to solve the problem. We have to do something different in our own lives. And unless we change our lives, meaning everyone, not particularly us as devotees, but the general public, unless they change their behavior and give up their sinful activity, they're going to suffer more and more. So, para upakara, the Vaishnava wants to see that everyone becomes happy. He wants to see everyone happy in relationship with the Lord. So this is our preaching opportunity. A lot of people, they've learned by now that we're not the body. When I joined the movement in 1973, Prabhupada was the only one who was clearly saying, without any equivocation, you are not the body. Nobody else was speaking like that at that time. In the year 2000, I remember reading a Gallup poll in which it was reported that some 60% of the American people understood that they were some kind of spiritual being, something other than the body. So I thought that was amazing progress. Amazing that so much has been accomplished like that. Okay, so that part's done. What's next? What's the next step? Okay, I'm a spiritual being. Now what? What do I do next? So that's what we have to teach now. Well, how does a spiritual being act in this material world? Parupakara, you don't harm others. You develop your relationship with God. That's what this human life is for. So let's move the preaching up a notch. Next step. And then there's another step after that. There's more and more steps. So help people understand. Human life means responsibility. It means we don't act like animals, but we take responsibility. How are we living in this world? Because there's a reaction to our actions. So, anyway, the people are coming to the point where they people are coming to the point where they're suffering enough where they're beginning to be willing to listen. I'm attending another academic conference in August in Italy. This is by the European Sociological Association. And in their call for papers, they were literally saying, we got a big problem and we don't know what to do. We'll listen to anybody. You don't have to be an academic. Come on, what do you have to say? So I thought, well, here's my opportunity, right? So I sent in my abstract, and they accepted my abstract, and so I have opportunity to speak there. So people are coming to the point where they're willing to listen. And it's going to be like that, right? When people become chastised, chastened by suffering enough, then they become a little sober, and they'll be willing to listen and hear and try to understand what went wrong. So this is, in Chinese, the word crisis also means opportunity. So this crisis, this is not created for the devotees of the Lord, but the devotees use it as an opportunity to preach the message of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Questions or comments?